Welcome back to another episode of the Education Corner podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're speaking to Mr. John Floyd, the headmaster of Bruern Abbey, which is a school that specialises in preparing boys aged 8 to 13 with learning difficulties for common entrance. We talk about the curriculum at Bruern, the destinations of leavers, the learning support available, the flexible boarding, and so much more. So keep listening.
Lovely to meet you, John. And I'm very thankful to you for giving up some time to talk to Education Choices about Bruern Abbey and the good work that's going on there. My first question really is, you have such a unique aim as a school. Can you tell me a little bit more about the ethos and the objective of Bruern Abbey?
Of course, good afternoon. So Bruern is slightly different from many other schools because really, I suppose, to use parent-friendly explanations, we're effectively the garage of the prep school world. So the idea is we take in, at the moment, we're 160 boys who have come from 113 schools. So they come from far and wide, and we're the sort of garage that academically speaking, tries to sort them out, and we also cheer them up and then get them back on the road again. So really the sorts of families we work best for are those who have got children in the mainstream, but they're struggling, and there is a concern that without proper concerted intervention, they're going to slide out of the mainstream and into special needs schools. And we kind of sit at, dare I say, the backstop of that process to try and get them the types of teaching, the support they need so they can return to mainstream schools at 13 plus.
And they do very well, don't they?
Yes, they do. They are, they come from far and wide, and some are very, very bright. I mean, in the past couple of years, our exit lists have gone from everything from St. Paul's in London to America, to Europe, to Dorset, Norfolk, Scotland. So a big part of it is not only about getting the academics in place and rebooting what we describe as their academic self-esteem, but also another big part of it is also trying to advise parents who often sometimes feel quite guilty. They made the wrong choice of school at some stage in their child's career, and they want a lot of advice about where to go to next. So I think our leavers this year are going to 22 different schools between the 42 that are leaving.
Can you just, for the sake of parents who may not be familiar with it, explain what a skills-based curriculum is and how the students at Bruern Abbey respond to the skills-based education?
Okay, so a skills-based curriculum is really, it's about being taught how to do stuff, not a content-led curriculum, which is like, please, can you learn lots of facts? So if one was to go back through educational history, back in the day, a lot of curricula were based around how much stuff do you know, and exams were then asking you to remember and recall stuff and facts. Nowadays, the pendulum has swung to a much more skills-based, which is, can you do things, be it in maths, dividing or multiplying, or whether it's in English, being able to deduce or frame or structure an argument. But the raw content of that argument, or the raw content, let's say, of the historical syllabus, for want of an example, is not fixed. It is the skills by which you manage to successfully interpret stuff and use information. That's the important bit.
Obviously, though, the children go on to be able to sit the entrance exams to other schools that you've already mentioned. That, you know, this year they're going off to 22 different schools, and they're still being prepared on the common entrance or English and maths, depending obviously on the entrance procedure of the school.
Yes, we are lucky in the sense that a large number of senior schools, even some of the very popular ones, have an understanding that the Bruern boys, because we're all boys at the moment, is probably pre-testing them at 11 plus in the first term of year 6. They are not the finished article by that stage. Indeed, if they really were the finished article by that stage, they probably don't need to still be at Bruern anymore, to be perfectly candid. We could consider job done and they'd be out the door. So they're willing to assess children later. And so therefore, Bruern actually still has quite a traditional emphasis on common entrance, which many other schools have moved beyond. But for us, it is a very good way right at the end of year 8, right at the back end of their sort of final term of their time at Bruern, to show how much progress they've made during their tenure, and it can therefore illustrate to those senior schools that these boys are ready to fly and ready to join these often very sought after academic institutions. And it reassures those senior schools that those boys will hopefully thrive, not just survive.
So therefore they're not sitting the ISCB testing that many are sitting in year 6.
They probably roughly a third of our year 6 will sit an 11 plus pre-test. The rest will probably be much more likely to do an assessment in year 7. And often the 30 odd % that would sit one in year 6, we say ahead of time to the senior school, look, we understand this is part of your process, so this child will complete the ISCB pre-test. However, for goodness sake, please don't judge them on those results, because it is very much a work in progress. It would be, to use that garage analogy, it would be trying to work out the top speed of a car when it still hasn't got its tires put on. You know, it's definitely the wrong moment to judge.
It's quite a unique relationship that you've built up over the years with many of these schools. There must be a lot of trust and faith in the work that you're doing, by the fact that they're prepared to delay some of the year 6 tests that so many are doing now.
Yeah, I think unique, particularly in education, the word unique gets bandied around a lot. I don't think it's unique. I think we are very lucky and very fortunate to have very good relations, as I'm sure many schools do, with the senior schools. I think we have 2 things in our favor. One, which is it's absolutely unequivocal that these children aren't ready to do the pre-test in year 6. And so it's very hard for any senior school to argue at that, because often their reading ages or their spelling ages may be 2 or 3 years behind their chronological age. So they're almost in a position where they can't even access the test. But also, a lot of the senior schools know that Bruern doesn't, make its USP how many children we get into a small golden circle group of select schools. That's not how we're marketed. So they know that we are not going to thrust upon them or push as hard as we can to get as many as possible into a small group of highly selective academic schools. So they know that we're probably much more likely to be more measured in our approach in terms of who we think should go where.
I know that you have twice as many English and maths lessons as many regular schools. For your junior school pupils, how do you find this benefits the children?
Yeah, again, a lot of the boys, fundamentally, they have high IQs, but their core literacy and numeracy skills are weak. They've missed chunks and segments out of their learning. And for us to do our job well, we've got to fill in those potholes as quickly as we can. Otherwise, again, using that sort of motoring analogy, they're just not going to be able to sort of get out of the garage. They need those core skills. So we really did 2 things. We reduced the amount of Latin and Greek on the curriculum because we find that although it would be lovely for them to do it, it is not essential to get into a senior school. Obviously, anyone applying from overseas or from the state sector is not going to be doing Latin or Greek. It is not a definitive requirement. And also what we've done is we've taken homework off the curriculum as well. And instead of having homework at the end of the day, we've extended our school day, and then we just have more lessons in the school working week. So we have 36 lessons in a working week. And that doesn't include games or clubs or activities or any of those sorts of things. So we're doing more lessons more often. And again, because you've got 2 teachers to, I think our biggest class at the moment is 12 children, you can give a huge amount of input in that time frame, and that basically maximizes the progress. But by taking the Latin and the prep out, that's basically created 10 extra lessons in the syllabus, so they can still do music, PSHE, double art, double DT, geography, history, religious studies, and all the other subjects that make school life a bit more interesting.
Tell me a bit more about the speech and occupational therapy. I'm assuming it's on site, and have you seen clear, well, obviously I'm sure you have, but have you seen clear improvements in the pupils that attend these therapies?
Yes, I think, yes, we have. We're very lucky. Actually, one of our matrons, one of our house mistresses is a full-time occupational therapist, so we can really embed that within their sort of boarding or day pupil week. And we do have an on-site speech and language therapist. I think both are impactful at the right times. There were moments, so this is my 10th year at Bruern, where every child that was struggling with handwriting was referred to an occupational therapist, and anyone that was struggling to understand or say what they wanted was sent to a speech and language therapist, which was probably too broad a catchment area. But there is no doubt that when used properly as an intervention, it is very impactful. And I've actually seen, particularly on the speech and language with my own children, I have 4 sons, lucky me. And
I've got one with very smelly socks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just imagine the 8 socks. 10. So yeah, it can be hugely beneficial, particularly if those therapists work alongside the teachers and alongside the community. So, and I think that is a very big difference about how it's done at Bruern. So, for example, our occupational therapist and our speech and language therapist, because they're part of the school, they're joining the daily staff briefings, they are having lunch with the children, they do break duties, they help out with boarding duties. So they get a much deeper understanding. Now, that's not to say that if you're at let's say a day school in London where I used to work, you can't go and visit a speech and language therapist for an hour a week, and it wouldn't, that can still have a positive impact. But having them embedded within the school just creates a much better understanding of the wants and needs of those children, and also what they're fundamentally like, so you can build that rapport and relationship much faster as well.
How do you find the extracurricular activities aids with the education of the boys? And are they an important part in the preparation towards the common entrance, do you feel?
So I think they're a very important part in terms of rebuilding their self-esteem. So, for example, a lot of dyslexics are very, very visual learners. They're very good at making stuff and designing stuff. And when you talk to them about their early days, it goes from sort of doodle drawing a lot to Duplo to Lego to junk modeling to Minecraft to CAD-CAM, which is like a online sort of architectural drawing program. So they love making stuff, and seeing things in 3 dimensions comes very easily to them, and they're very good at that. So things like having lots of art and DT, and also more basic stuff, just like the opportunity to build dens and dam streams and all of that sort of fun stuff, really feeds an area of strength in terms of their neuro profiles. So it is really, really important. Whether it helps them get through common entrance, I'm not sure, but I think it certainly puts them in a better mood and better place to enjoy school life once again. And dare I say, if there is a school which didn't do those fun things, then it would be a less enjoyable place for them to be.
Yeah. Flexible boarding that you offer is fantastic. Can you tell me a bit more about how that works?
Yeah. So the boarding here is quite interesting, because we always joke that although we are a boarding school, we're actually a day school that provides beds for day pupils. Now, the reason why I say that is I think there's only 4 out of the 160 currently on site who boarded before they came here. They were nearly all day pupils that struggled, but due to the geography involved, and when I say that, what I mean is, we have families in Kent, West Sussex, Cornwall, Norfolk, Isle of Man. So these families, despite us only being a weekly boarding school, are traveling a huge distance, and they simply can't commute in and out of school on a daily basis. So we only do boarding 4 nights a week. So it's only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then that allows Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So 3 decent nights to be at home. And therefore we finish school slightly earlier on the Friday, and we start slightly later than most on Monday, to try and allow these families that wouldn't probably have picked a boarding school at this age and stage for their sons a really good weekend together.
Yeah.
Now, even with all that, there may be families that want a flexi board. So roughly 1/3 of the boys at Bruern are day pupils who maybe do the occasional night boarding. And then there's 2/3 that stay 4 nights a week. But within that 2/3, I reckon there's probably a good 20 who will go home after matches on a Wednesday afternoon, or will go home on a Monday night, particularly in the winter, maybe when there's not much exciting stuff going on, you can't go outside. And we basically just asked for 24 hours notice. So tell us today if you want to be at home tomorrow, or tell us today if you want to board as an extra night tomorrow night. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe after sort of, Boris Johnson's latest announcement will be a sort of full-time babysitting service once parents can finally go out to dinner without freezing.
How would you then describe, I know you can't necessarily generalise massively, but what qualities do you feel a child develops through being at Bruern Abbey?
I think their self-confidence and their self-belief increases. I think they get a better understanding of themselves, both in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. I think they become a bit more resilient as they learn the coping strategies required to sort of navigate a traditional curriculum when they go back onto the mainstream school. And I think they also develop a level of empathy. They realize that it's been tough for them in their schools previously, and there's a sort of collegiality and a friendliness amongst the children that sort of all realize they had a tough time of it probably before coming here, and this is their sort of happy, safe place. And there is definitely friendships here that last a very, very long time, because this was the first place where they sort of felt valued and settled and at home, for want of a better explanation.
And confident.
Yeah, I think that comes under the self-belief banner. They realized, for the first time, they actually can do stuff that they previously maybe thought they couldn't.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John. This has been so useful, and I'm sure many families and parents will enjoy listening to you speaking so enthusiastically about Bruern Abbey.
Well, it's a bit of a one-trick pony in terms of its purpose. So it's, if they wanted me to talk about the relative strengths of arts, drama, music, or extreme sport, then I would have been absolutely rubbish. But dyslexics and learning difficulties, being very dyslexic myself, is the one thing I've got, now 40 whole years experience of.
Thank you for listening, and thank you to John for speaking to us. I hope you've enjoyed, and stay tuned for more episodes coming soon.